This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by Carmilla, an early work of vampire fiction written in 1872 by Irish author Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. It predates Bram Stoker's Dracula by 26 years, which should clarify anything Gregory gets wrong in this podcast.
Attention, citizens! It's time for Super Pulp Science!
This is Super Pulp Science coming at you with respectful social distance recordings. Here with me is our excellent producer, Dan Vadeboncoeur, and Justin Curry, also known as Chasing Artwork. We are not in the studio today, as Winnipeg is in a code red lockdown starting today, meaning we're all supposed to be sheltering at home if we can. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
We're going to pretend like we didn't just have a conversation all about the demise of direct home video before the introduction of this podcast.
It was exciting times.
Yeah. So speaking of exciting times, one of the things I want to bring up is longtime listeners to our podcast will know the name of Claire C. Marshall, who is the author of a book that Justin and I sort of executive produced. But she also is really great at doing these post-mortems of conventions. And one of my big lamentations of the lockdown and the closing of conventions was that I wouldn't get to read Claire's blog about all the different shows and all the different things she's done. But lo and behold, she just released a postmortem, which I think everyone should check out.
Did she?
Yeah, Fairy Ink Press, fairyinkpress.com. We'll double check that and put it in the show notes. A postmortem of launching a book during the pandemic and doing a pre-order campaign. And I found it to be so insightful and so carefully step by step that I wished I had had it before Automatic Age launched. I just absolutely going to use it as a template. I'm going to share it with some publishers I know. Claire runs her own company, runs her own press, publishes books that she writes herself, and has figured out the hard way how to get some things done. And it's really clear that she's been taking it very seriously, what to do during a very strange time. And I think anyone who's used to convention life, or who's listening to this podcast saying what do I do with everything closed? How do I get my creative work out there? Should definitely check that out. Some of the highlights included how she built her email list, how she, one thing that I thought was a really key point, which we didn't do on our Kickstarter, Justin. So I'm going to bring it up here.
Oh.
So Claire made this really great point about marketing through email, and how when you reach somebody, you really have to let them know just why it is that they have to get it now and not later. And I think that when I look back at our social media posts, I mean, we had a successful Kickstarter, and so that's great. But I think when I look back at it, one of the things that I didn't do on my social media posts was underline the urgency. Not that if they don't get the book now, they can never get it. But if they get the book now, it helps us directly, really specifically. And the consumer that's helping us directly right now, will get some benefits from that also. And to underline that as often as possible. And she also organized or laid out this marketing schedule of how and when to send the emails, how it not to seem too pushy, what parts of your own life to include so that it's legitimately authentic and interesting. And there was just a whole breakdown that I really think if you're a creative person with an online business, you should read the Postmortem by Claire C. Marshall, her most recent one. Absolutely. That's my tirade about that. I was going through that yesterday and I was like, oh, we didn't do that. Oh, we didn't do that. Definitely didn't do that. Should totally do that for my new book. Claire, if you're listening, good job.
Nice. I'm looking forward to checking that out. I always enjoyed reading the postmortems. It was always neat. Like, everybody has a very, very different experience from a Comic-Con, so it's neat seeing, just a couple tables down what their experience was like compared to yours. So it was always like, especially when I started out, I would like scour the internet for people reviewing their experience at conventions from a selling standpoint, and I would try to learn everything I could. And there was a huge lack of that. Like even now, it's tough to find people really getting into like reviews of conventions from the booth standpoint. It's all, what Funkos they could track down and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally true. I wonder if we're in a position now where there's so many people like us who either have podcasts or blogs or their social media is really sharing what it is that, they have time now to share. And so many of them are sharing, like Cartoonist Kayfabe and a few other YouTube channels I can think of. George McHale has a new Inside Comics YouTube channel, stuff like that. But I wonder if all that wisdom that people are sharing will ever apply again.
Oh, of course. Yeah. We'll be fine.
I wonder. Well, we were talking before the podcast started about the demise of home video. There was a lot of wisdom about how to best run and sell a home video business. Just doesn't exist anymore. And I wonder if there is some aspect of our worlds that will no longer be true anymore. Like you made a joke about your first DVD being Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man, right?
Fantastic movie. Fantastic film.
But there aren't a lot of places where you can just pop in and buy a copy of that, right? Those days are gone.
That is what's really tough about this current situation, the current like video streaming situation, is that you can't always find the movies that you want to find, especially really obscure ones. And that was when I worked at Blockbuster, that was kind of the downside, is that we would sell off any movies that didn't rent. So if a movie had less than like 2 rentals in a year, we'd sell it off, which is great for the people who came in wanting to buy some, obscure anime. And then we actually did end up selling the entire anime section at one point. I remember we did that because it just overall was not a popular genre in my particular location. So yeah, all that stuff is gone. And
now those sections are their own streaming services. Like all those movies you sold for $2 are the Criterion Collection now.
Yeah. And it's splitting off into, like, we have Shudder, which is all horror movies. We have Disney Plus, which is Disney movies. So it's, all those sections are becoming their own thing. So we have to pay for them individually, but they're also not publishing everything. Although I am pretty impressed with Shudder. I did take a look at Shudder. They do have a pretty good selection of, like it's gotten a lot better since the last time I looked at it, as far as their both horror movies and like older ones, and also their kind of original series, which is also something pretty new as well.
And Dan, is that why you say that it's hard to find certain things, is because depending on the movie, it's on a streaming service that you don't have or owned by, there's just so many streaming services and things are so spread out. You likely don't have the streaming service you need to watch that movie.
Yeah, or it also comes off of streaming when it's the right time. Like at Halloween, all the scary movies come off of Netflix, and at Christmas time, all the Christmas movies come off of Netflix, and they go to like individual. You have to rent these on your on-demand service to watch.
I wonder if we're going to reach a place where a middleman service comes in. Like when you ship something through UPS, they buy freight and shipping at huge rates, right? Like they bulk purchase that stuff to lock in a pro rate. And then each of their items that they ship or send out, right, has an average price to them, which is how they make money. Is there going to be a place where somebody comes in and buys 1 million Facebook, Netflix, Amazon, Shudder, Crunchyroll accounts as one big bundle, and then for $10.99 or $13.99 or $20, like lower than it would cost to have them all, you can just have all those services through another.
You got it.
And is that a business model that we should immediately raise capital investment for?
Yeah, I think you got
need
it.
about $500 million to start. You guys game?
Yeah. Sure.
You did it. You're the first.
I've done Crunchyroll as well. I've done like a lot of these platforms I've tried out just to see what they're. And again, I don't watch it often enough. Like we use Crunchyroll and we watched pretty much all of My Hero Academia. And until something else comes out new for that, I don't see the reason to continue it. And that's kind of the same thing for HBO or any of these specialized streaming services. The only ones I seem to keep on regular are Netflix and Prime, because those are the ones I use the most often.
Mm-hmm.
And
it seems like so many of them come out with like, what was the one with Star Trek Discovery?
Oh, the CBS All Access, but then they backed down on that because it wasn't getting enough views. So now they're just airing Discovery on TV, like it's on prime time.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Yep.
It's been on. The season 3 of Discovery has been airing on TV, like old-fashioned television, commercials and all. So
I guess that backfired.
Well, they didn't get enough uptake. Star Trek alone is not enough to carry that whole streaming service, right? They need more than just that.
Yeah. Well, and that was like what I was going to bring up was it didn't seem like there was anything of that I really wanted on that streaming service except for that. So it's like basically just paying to stream Star Trek and nothing else.
No, I'd almost do it, but it actually was really hard to get it to work on my PlayStation. It just didn't work properly. And once it didn't load properly twice, I'd never tried again.
Hey, that's wow. We're lucky we got you on the Zoom call, Greg. It took you 4 tries to get on the Zoom
call. No, well, that's different because I like you guys. You're special editions in my heart.
Oh, thank you.
All right, you NaNoWriMo slackers. Justin, you were saying you didn't work on your book that much.
No, I think I'm around 11,000 words. So I mean, I've worked on it since we last chatted, but I recently kind of dived into a piece. I find this happens like every couple of months. I'll get kind of just obsessed with an idea and want to go a little above and beyond a normal painting. It's usually around this time of year too, I've noticed, like around the changing of seasons. It's starting to snow here in Winnipeg, where we've, got about an inch of snow on the ground now. Things have gotten colder. It's starting to get dark at 5 o'clock, 4:30. So I think last year at this point, I animated a Gundam being built in a time-lapse animation, and I spent like 4 straight days on it. It wasn't for any reason other than I just got obsessed with the idea of making this time-lapse build. And then, so the last couple of days, I really enjoy. It's like a corner of the internet. A lot of, especially like anime themed artists will draw noodle shops and like ramen alleys. So just like buildings covered in signs and lanterns and stuff. And it's usually at night. I don't know. It's just like a corner of artwork that you find on the internet. And I wanted to do something like that.
Not to mention the number of times we've sought those alleyways out in the cities we've traveled to.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've been to Japan, so I've seen like exactly those streets that are, I've seen exactly those shops. So I wanted to draw one, and then I also wanted to incorporate a robot into it because that's what I do. So I spent the last couple days building this big robot that's been basically hooked up to this ramen shop, and they're using his like power source to heat and power their shop. And I covered it in plants and drew a couple people, and it's one of the most complex pieces I think I've ever painted. So it was a lot of fun, and it took a long time, and it's kind of been all I've been doing.
I really like it. I like how there's these little stories happening in sort of each quadrant of the illustration.
Yeah, there's chickens up to weird things. There's cats in there. There's people reading books, people playing on the robot. And then the other thing that this kind of accomplished, I didn't realize this as I was building it. I kind of decided halfway through. The Dragon Nanny Kickstarter unlocked an additional print that every single person gets, and this the story that this piece kind of builds really fits into the universe of my graphic novel. So this will be the free print that everybody who got the physical book also gets this as a print. And then I'm also going to put it on my online store. So anybody who orders the Dragon Nanny book in 2020 also gets this print for free. So it kind of is bolstering the Dragon Nanny graphic novel in a bunch of different ways.
Justin, I'm noticing on there's a little chalkboard in this noodle stand.
Yes.
Can't quite make out what it says.
So that's the spicy noodle challenge.
Okay.
If you finish the bowl of noodles in one sitting, you get your name up on a wall of fame and a T-shirt.
Oh, sweet.
And then there's a little disclaimer though, if the challenge causes if it causes health conditions or untimely deaths, we're not responsible. And this is actually inspired by a ramen shop that Greg and I went to in Chicago with our good friend Quirkylicious, and they had the Hell Ramen Challenge that, if you finish the spicy bowl of noodles, you get a T-shirt, but then an asterisk, it says, if you have to go to the hospital, it's not our fault. So I guess this thing was so hot that it put people in, pretty big distress. And so enough that they had to have a disclaimer, can't sue us if you try this. And I thought that was funny.
Well, and I realized that it says it on the sidebar here. I wasn't looking at the description of the image, but you said all that spicy nudes challenge. But I love this piece. It's really, really cool. It's a perfect kind of vision of the future where there's all these robots broken down and people are just making use of them. Very, very cool.
If it takes, I hope people really like this piece, because I have a whole series planned of an ice cream shop with a set in a snowy environment, a whole world where humans are kind of rebuilding and there's all these massive robots dormant around the world and they're just being used as kind of batteries for their businesses. Mm-hmm. So a coconut yeah, exactly. That was kind of the start of all this. But I have a whole bunch of little shops that I'd love to draw that have all been built around ancient war machines. Mm-hmm. So if this takes off, but that's the thing, right? I love that idea of a project, but that's months of work. So I kind of need a little more than just my own want to do it, Mm-hmm. I need to be a little more businessy hat about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe I don't.
The armchair psychologist in me sees that you're coming to terms with the wreckage of your past life and you're willing to rebuild from the good parts, right? Art is your battery. Built a little shop around it, right? It's all good.
Business. I want a free T-shirt.
Yeah, you want a free business hat wise. I think an important thing to consider for people who are, they're making art, they're making books, they're making, whether, for lack of a better, more robust way to describe it, they're making Etsy shop paraphernalia, right? All of those people I see around on the internet, they're all making things even though there's no place to sell them, right? They're just doing it because it's what's in them to do is to make all this stuff, and it's just their way to self-express it. But at a certain point, you're going to have an inventory, just like you now have this print. Mm-hmm. And then deciding what to do with it is a big, maybe concern is too bold of a word for it, but there is a concern. I've been making lots of stuff. I'm going to have at the end of this calendar year, sort of an extra graphic novel under my belt, with no place to sell it. And I think a lot of people are hoping that somebody else is going to come up with the next thing, right? That we can then jump onto. But I think instead of that, we should all be considering that Claire Marshall approach of just make it, make it available to people and let people know as often as possible that it is available. And, you know, you might be able to just weather the storm. There is no magic bullet here.
And you know what the sad part about it is? It's that I have this gift and I can't even use it.
That's something I've kind of haven't liked about the last couple months of my like social media, is constantly pointing people towards my store.
Yeah, it feels gross.
I feel it does, yeah, and it shouldn't, but I'm struggling with always being like, hey, I did a thing and go buy it here. I don't like doing that, but it's, you know, what else are you supposed to do? You're right. The store doesn't really move unless I am posting about it, right? Like, people aren't really going there on their own. There's a direct correlation to when I do a post like, hey, I've got this and go buy it here, then sales come. If I don't say anything, people aren't going there by themselves. But it feels, like a little gross to always be like, hey, go buy my stuff.
Yeah, but keep in mind that not everybody's seeing every single one of those posts every time. It's not
true,
like,
yeah.
It's not like, you know, you're inundating your followers with post after post of buy my stuff, buy my stuff. That's why it works, right? Because it's catching a certain amount of people. Oh yeah, I haven't got a print from Justin this year. I should go check out his store, you know, because they haven't seen you at a con or whatever. That would be the reason I think that someone would do that. But yeah, people are pretty, you know, single-minded when they're online. They're like, dude, they're just kind of going through stuff, and they're like, oh, look at that, and they'll go where you push you push them.
The one trick that I've kind of like that I quite like using was for artists online, there's Throwback Thursday. So every Thursday you're supposed to kind of repost something that you did just a couple months to a couple of years ago and be like, remember, I did this piece years ago and here's what I was doing. And it's just kind of a, like, you know, a memory from your timeline. And that's the post that I always try to direct people to the store on. So the rest of my posts are just normal, but every Throwback Thursday is also I did this and here's my store. So it's kind of tied into that day of the week, and I'm trying not to do it any other time. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So you just, something that is already kind of automated. You also have your commercial.
Yeah.
And so that your
Throwback Thursday is kind of my ad.
Yeah. The rest of your social media is still the social part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. It's all, I'm finding myself spending less and less time on social media just in general. And like days when I don't pick up my phone till the end of the day just to check an essential message or two are like the best days ever. So I can't, if I'm feeling that way, I can't imagine that there aren't literally millions of people feeling the same way, that they're just constantly being shouted at in increasing desperation from every corner of the world too. So there's a flip side, right? Yes, you have to share. And the other side is, no, not everyone will hear it, as Dan points out. And maybe people are just exhausted. And not to mention, you know, here in North America, out of work and unable to like go to work.
Yeah.
So there's a whole kettle of fish going around. On the optimistic side, I've been using, as we mentioned last episode, I've been using NaNoWriMo to just kind of plug away at my regular novel. As just every time I see somebody else talk about NaNoWriMo, I remind myself, yes, I should be working on my book too. And I make sure that I do stick to my schedule. So The Backbone of Night is coming along nicely.
What's your word count at?
It's a good question. It's probably around 15, 16,000 words right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it also has, there's also 22, 27 illustrations that go along with that as well. And I'm going to have to scale that back. Like, it's going to have to close in around 15,000 words. So I'm overwriting right now so that I can cut or push some of that into the third book.
Gotcha.
And the way I'm writing is in these sort of vignette passages, sort of like the first book is structured. So there are big jumps in time or setting that occur just between the chapter breaks. So it gives me some freedom if I overwrite, but I do it in a linear, like this leads to this, leads to this. Then if I have too much, I don't have to cut all of it. I can just break it and move some of the key events into the next book. My big problem with that book right now is that I keep writing people into, I mentioned this last time, into overly dangerous situations and then leaving it to resolve the next day. And then I show up and I still don't know how to fix it. So then instead I'll write the next scene. I'll just write the scene after as if it got solved. And then sometimes while writing that scene, it'll occur to me how it was solved. So it's just, it's a, knowing the final structure and what the final word count and the rough number of illustrations that I have to have in that book, because I've done one already, changes the NaNoWriMo game, right? It's not, please try and finish a book if you can. It's finish a book the way you finished the last book. So it's a little bit of an unfair advantage, I would say, as far as that goes. My big struggle has been with working on Eye Collector issue 4 and 5. Issues 1 to 3 are already in the can, and the first one comes out in November. So I got a lot of lead time to finish up that fourth one. And I'm about 5 pages from being finished, but it's this really it's a pretty dark story, and it's a pretty heavy section. And in the real world, a dear friend of mine recently passed away, and I've been having some pretty vivid dreams related to that also, part of just processing that you can't go see them and you're not going to have a funeral and all that kind of stuff. So it's been hard to work on a book all about the danger of dreaming too deeply while I'm in the middle of doing that too, visually. I've actually found it easier to do the writing than to do the illustration this past 3 weeks or so. So it's been a weird kind of where the real world butts up against the fictional world. So that's strange. But we had a great meeting with Heavy Metal about how the book will be released and when and where and what the plan is if COVID abates soon and if it doesn't abate until later. And they've got a really good open-minded approach to just getting the sort of weirdest, strangest book we've ever made together and then release it in a timely fashion. So it's been a kind of a weird, since our last podcast, it's been a pretty weird week for me, for sure. Which is partially why I have not responded to you or Dan's texts in any, I'm usually pretty slow as it is, but in this particular instance, I know I've been even harder to reach, but that's why, because life just gets in the way sometimes. I was gonna ask you guys a really profound question, and then I forgot what it was. It was going to be so good. It was going to be deep. It was going to help really add a facet to our understandings of ourselves, the world we live in.
Sell it here. Just
creative expressions. It was a great question. I could feel it, but it's gone now. So sorry, guys.
Did it have to do with Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man?
Maybe because I feel so hollow. Yeah, maybe it does. Have you seen the new Invisible Man movie?
not yet, no.
No, I love that actress though. She's amazing. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's apparently great. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either.
It's working. It's actually working.
Of course it is.
My kids have this big stack for school. We've been going through this big stack of Classics Illustrated. So we have all these abridged versions of great works of literature that I also have for the majority of them, I also have the actual books here. But so many of them have also been made into graphic novels, which, because I'm a literary nerd, I also have those. So I've been doing this thing with my kids where they read the Classics Illustrated version of a bunch of different classic works of literature. And if they like them, then they graduate to the better version. So it's like their ticket to entry is reading the crappy version from 1960 with the bad illustrations and the poor font choices. And then if they can withstand it, then their interest gets inflamed and then they leap ahead. So I have a question for you guys. I'm going to get the stack. Hold on a second. Which of these great works of literature do you think would be most interesting to kids ages 9 to 11. All right. War of the Worlds, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Time Machine, Gulliver's Travels, Black Beauty, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Three Musketeers, Dracula, Moby Dick, and The Red Badge of Courage. Which ones do you think? The way we did it first was I gave them that stack and I said, pick the ones you think are most interesting. We'll read those first. What are your?
Well, I think they probably picked War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds
not
and
right away.
No, really.
20,000 Leagues was mine.
Okay,
My first pick. Yeah.
so Moby Dick and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
You know why? Because you play that Assassin's Creed pirate game with your kids where you sail around on a boat. So I think they're just a big fan of any seafaring adventure.
That might also be true. But one thing that they pointed out that I, as the person who's actually taught these books many times to classrooms full of interested or not so interested students, is that Moby Dick and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea are basically like reflections of each other. One is about a mad sea captain chasing a monster whale, and the other one is about a mad sea captain who pilots the monster whale. And the number of similarities in the structure of both books that my 9 and 11-year-old pointed out just by reading the graphic novel versions.
Which one came first? Moby Dick came first, right? 1872 for 20,000 Leagues.
Yeah, in 1869.
Oh, wow.
1869 is originally published 20,000 Leagues.
Oh, okay. So what was Moby Dick?
So Moby Dick and...
when I Googled it, it came up Moby Dick, Patrick Stewart. He was in 1851. So Moby Dick did come first, but not by much.
Not by much. But whaling was a big, it was clearly a big...
it was the lamp whale, right? That was why.
That's right. Thereafter, yeah. So both of those I have lots of versions of. There's some great French editions of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea that have been turned into graphic novels. And but interestingly enough, I also have all the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen graphic novels up to present, of which there are many. And their immediate interest to read these books, which are absolutely not appropriate for children whatsoever, is really interesting to me, that all these different versions of these classic works, of which I have, the novelizations, I have illustrated novel sort of summaries of them, I have graphic novels, I have the comics of so many of these, because I use them for so many different parts of teaching. My question, I guess, then to you from this tangent is, why do you think certain works endure and others just become, the chaff of bookstore return bins?
I guess I would respond with another question and say, does that happen anymore? Do people still write and publish novels on the same level as these classics? They're illustrated classics for a reason. These are like some of the most celebrated novels ever written in that list that you just said.
In retrospect, there were a lot of in 1851.
but do people are books like that still being created? Is there anything that's come out in the last 20 years that you would put on the same level as those?
We won't know for another 40 years.
Well,
yeah. Okay. Right. In 2251, I guess we'll know. Right?
Like I've wondered about this too. Like how much of that is familiarity, like brand awareness? Like everybody is familiar with Moby Dick. Like everybody's heard of that. So as soon as you make anything called Moby Dick, people have this frame of reference and they're more likely to check it out than something they've never heard before. I thought about this a lot, like in the Louvre.
That had to happen in a time in the 1800s, right? Up into the, like early 19th century, we're getting into publishing en masse. It had to have been a success enough and enduring enough that it got passed along through word of mouth
But there's so many other things that could have been, like, maybe they just had money to put into marketing back in a time where nobody had money to put into marketing, right? Like, it wasn't just some guy wrote it down on paper and started
No, I
spreading it
disagree with that,
around.
because I'll see you. I'll hear that, and I'll raise you a Conan or a Call of Cthulhu, both of which were at the time financial disasters, couldn't get published.
Right.
People were not recognizing it, didn't care, no one liked it, critics hated them, and now they're works that, whether you like them or not, they've endured, they've survived the fact that people thought they were bad at the beginning, right? Even Edgar Allan Poe was at his beginnings a failure.
Yeah.
So, it has to have something that endures beyond popularity. Like we were talking about this is a great segue to a part of the conversation that won't be in the podcast that we had before, about the wall of videos at the Blockbuster Video, how people would come in and they would just rent the new thing. Didn't matter if it was good, they just rent what was new. And then other movies ended up in the dollar bin or the $2 bin, which are now, 20, 30 years later, what we would classify as the Criterion Collection, right? Great works of film that, even though they were financial failures, are enduring works of art, right? So that's my question, is like, there's no way to pick it, I guess, but what do you guys think allows a work to endure? What do you think some of those key ingredients are?
I mean, if it's a story that appeals to a lot of people, like a lot of people can relate to, although I don't know that everybody can relate to Moby Dick.
I'm not a whaler.
Well, but I'm sure we've all been obsessed with something. We've all had some kind of obsession, not to the extreme that Ahab did, but maybe we can. I'm not that bad. I don't know. I'll be honest. I've never read the actual novel Moby Dick. I've read the illustrated classics version of it, but I've never read the actual one.
Was Moby Dick successful when it first came out? Or was it one of those that was like it was a financial failure and then years later it was discovered, like rediscovered and reprinted?
That's a great question. As far as I know, it took a long time to write, like 2 years or something like that. Herman Melville was writing it, and I don't know if it was serialized or not. Like so many works at that time, I have to imagine that it was. Moby Dick is one of those works that is so quotable today. You can pull out lines of it that hit with such relevance, but as a work to reread now is a hard slog.
I would say that any one of those books are a pretty tough slog, because of the difference in writing style.
I just found the answer to your question.
Okay, go ahead.
Magic of the internet, Justin. 3,200 copies of the book Moby Dick were sold during the author's life.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So
we've sold more copies of our book than he sold of Moby Dick.
Wow. Yeah, and what I was saying was that it's tough because of the difference in writing styles, because I enjoy reading period piece novels, like a book set in different times, but it was a contemporary novel at the time, and so was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was written of its time, but to us, of course, it's now hundreds of years ago. And yeah, I was introduced to all of these things. Speaking to brand recognition, almost all of those novels, I've read almost all of those through the Illustrated Classics series. That's how I was introduced to them. I think, do you have Man in the Iron Mask? That was another one I read.
We have it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I don't have it as a classic illustrated, but so if someone wants to send it to me, we should make a PO box.
But it's such a great, that's why it's such a great series for kids, to get them interested in these older pieces of fiction. I really loved reading those when I was a kid. I should get some for my kids. I totally forgot about those until you brought it up.
You have no idea how much fun this is. You should try it.
I'm sure I'll have my chance.
So we had read 20,000 Leagues, and then we did some, we watched the Disney film, and we did Moby Dick, and we looked at excerpts from the original novel. I read some of that out loud to them, and But then the great Moby Dick story of our time, one of my favorite films, it's easily in my top 5 ever, despite its obvious flaws, is The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek
Obvious
2.
flaws? What are you talking
Right.
about?
Which is a retelling of Moby Dick, and I'd always known
Flawless
it was
film.
true, right? But there is a scene in it. I watched it with the kids, and Khan is leaning. Oh, pardon me, not Khan. Chekhov is holding the seatbelt of the overturned escape pod that they find on the desolate planet.
It's
And
Alpha
he-
6.
Right? He is, yeah. This is City Alpha 6. He's looking at it and he's making his explanation, like, oh, the Botany Bay, and it's supposed to connect to the whole grand operatic moment of the film itself. But on the shelf right behind him, my oldest son, points out that Moby Dick is literally on the shelf behind him in that scene. That one of the books that has survived in these science fiction characters' long journey from Earth to this distant planet, they actually have the book Moby Dick on there. Like it's so obviously Khan is Ahab, and Kirk is the white whale.
Now,
And
can I say that I've seen that movie many, many times, and I don't think I've ever noticed that.
yeah, it's right there on the shelf. There's a shelf of a whole
good
bunch of
eye,
right.
From your son, good eye, but also probably because it was top of mind because you guys had just spoken about it.
But that's just it. Like what I said to them was, we're going to watch a movie that to me is a modern day Moby Dick. And I didn't even realize how obviously a modern day Moby Dick it was. Like even the filmmakers were pointing to the trope.
So you should be able to answer this without the internet. Was Wrath of Khan is, I think, widely recognized as one of the best Star Trek movies ever now. But at the time, how'd that do upon release?
I believe
it did well enough because they greenlit the sequel right away, which then Star Trek 3 was a dismal failure.
No, but Star Trek 1 was successful because it was the first Star Trek movie, but there's a little bit of it wasn't very good, so there's a little bit of burnout there. People were not as hyped up to see the second one, but I think it's still, I saw it in the theater. I mean, I think a lot of people saw it in the theater, and it probably
that
did
was
as well.
the one with the giant ship coming to Earth and they can't stop it, slow it down. They don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I love that one.
I did too. I did too. Honestly,
yeah.
I thought it was very cool. I love the idea of them taking this human satellite Voyager and turning it into that was neat. I like that. And I don't know, it was just very boring. It took them a long time to get there is the problem.
Yeah, I think it was it felt like more classic sci-fi than even Star Trek is, like it was very slow pace, but
yeah, it was like Arthur C. Clarke had written a Star Trek movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. So it's a good film, but Wrath of Khan is the militarization of Starfleet. Gene Roddenberry and his family, it's one of their least favorites as a result of the obvious militarization of Starfleet, which it's not supposed to represent that.
But that's when Starfleet got really good, is when they got into the militarization aspect of it, and then even going further down to Deep Space Nine, when Deep Space Nine became all about the war against the Jem'Hadar or whatever. That whole thing was when that series got really good.
Oh, we're gonna go. Don't let us go so deep, Dan. What I will come back to, though, I'm gonna spin us back around to the idea of an enduring story, though, right? So, one of the reasons why I was promoting reading these old classics with my own kids is I was maintaining to them. I was like, we're gonna read these not because they're all great to you, but because so many filmmakers, animated feature designers, video game designers, comic book makers have this in their wheelhouse as stories that they're retelling. There are so many versions of Dracula. There are so many versions of War of the World. They're just out there almost ad nauseum, and I'm guilty of it myself.
Is that in part, though, just because they are, again, kind of bringing it back, a recognizable brand that is something that it's public domain, right? Like there's nothing stopping me from making a Dracula graphic novel, and I have that added bonus.
There's nothing stopping you from making a Last of the Mohicans graphic novel either.
Yeah.
Right, but one endures more greatly than the other. And I wonder, I think Dan struck upon it already, in that the metaphor is easy to separate. Like when you looked at Moby Dick, you're like, obsession. Everyone has an obsession, right? When we look at War of the Worlds, we say, everyone has feared an invader at some point, right? Whether rightfully or wrongfully, but that fear is definitely part of the human experience, right? If you look at a novel like Dracula, right, it's that foreign invader, right? And somebody else pointed out, actually it was on your horror talk that we did for FanQuest, Dan. Dr. Ball pointed out that one of the things that makes Dracula so scary at its time was it was a foreigner who could pass as English and was super wealthy.
Yeah.
Right? Which to us doesn't seem that scary, but to the people contemporarily, it struck differently. Right? And yet when you separate the core versus the drive of the story, some things last longer than others. Will our books endure? I don't know.
Yeah, like I'm still wondering if it's just like it's kind of a snowball effect. Like those are great stories, but the fact that they kept getting updated again and again and again, it kind of keeps it in on everybody's radar for such a long time that they become legends, And how many other great stories just never got retold 2 or 3 times to get that snowball effect that we see from something like Dracula or Moby Dick, that are, almost yearly there's another story told under that name.
Right. So that comes back around, and this will be my education peeking out. So Baudrillard and the notion that the real is only that which can be recreated. So as long as we see something often enough, it seems important, right? And so what are the works of literature that have been pushed down or suppressed as a result of that? One of the things that happened to me over the last couple of years of shows is I really like this story Carmilla, and I did a print
about
of that.
Carmilla. I'd never heard of Carmilla before.
Right? Really, the first vampire in literature is Carmilla, and depending on your interpretation, you could very obviously argue the first representation of a same-sex relationship in popular literature also. It was a story that a lot of people at shows had not heard of, but because I had the print up next to my Dracula print, it opened the conversation of, what's this other Dracula, or what's this other vampire piece you have? And I'm like, that's Carmilla. She actually predates Dracula. And most people they were shocked, They were like, no, I thought Dracula was the original vampire. I'm like, no, it turns out this, someone else got there first. And try not to be too upset that it's also a female writer that got there first, and it really calls to question, or really puts more into focus what you're saying, that some things got famous maybe because they were just constantly redone, and other things weren't shown that often.
One last kiss, for old time's sake.
I'd like to make a slight correction. I mixed up 2 details about writers. I usually rant about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, as Mary Shelley being the prominent female writer of the time. And I misappropriated that veneer and threw it onto Carmilla. Carmilla was written by Sheridan Le Fanu, I think is how you say it. I just realized that as we were talking, so Carmilla was not in fact written by a woman, but it was the earliest vampire story and starred a female vampire. So anyone who heard that earlier who was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Kamichuk? I apologize for my previous literary faux pas. But coming back around to what you're saying about Air Force One, what if it had a vampire on it? Wouldn't that have been better?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because Gary Oldman was Dracula.
He was.
Right? So if Dracula had been the terrorist on Air Force One, do you think that would have spawned a much better series of sequels?
Well, no, because he would have killed him at the end of the movie.
No, he
Or
would have come back.
would he have,
He'd
would
flown
he have
off
come
as a
back?
bat. Yeah, he would have flown off as a bat.
It's
at the
like,
end.
get off my plane. He throws him off and he turns into a bat and flies.
Oh, and then you could have rolled, instead of snakes on the plane, you could have had steaks on the plane, and it could have been a
Oh.
vampire hunter on the plane.
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson could have come in.
This sounds like one of those subpar sequels that we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
It's not going to be as good as the first one.
Oh my
And
goodness.
eventually they'll go to space, because wasn't that where all the movies eventually ended up, like Jason in space and
That's
Leprechaun
actually-
in space?
That was one of my favorite Friday the 13th. I love Jason in Space. Jason X. I love it. Such a good movie. So much fun. David
So-
Cronenberg gets killed in the first 5 minutes. It's awesome.
So, okay, so we've clearly highlighted a key feature is two things that happen is that if something endures, eventually someone will make a good version if the core idea sticks around. Or if it makes a lot of money, you're going to get another one. Right?
Hmm.
So can you combine those two ideas where if you made a book that you know, yeah, it's not that great, but you just make sure you constantly put out a sequel every couple of years, will it eventually build up enough brand recognition that it will carry on its own? Is that what
Like,
romance
just
novels are?
force it into being like a legendary story?
Yeah. Like, can we think of anything where that occurred? Like where we just know it shouldn't be as popular as it is, but we just keep getting. I think you brought it up, Leprechaun as a movie franchise.
Michael Bay's Transformers.
Oh, there's a great example. Yeah. Just keeps making
Like-
money.
Although that's one of those things where I'm like the Bumblebee movie, I loved, I quite enjoyed that. And that's a result of somebody decent taking the reins and doing a good Transformers story, because we've been like drowning in crappy Transformers for so long. They can use that brand platform to make a better one.
But we also know the origin of Transformers begins as knockoff G.I. Joes, clear G.I. Joe bodies that eventually turned into transforming robots, which eventually got coalesced into an American brand of a bunch of different transforming robots, which eventually made a cartoon and a whole bunch of cartoons, which eventually made a bunch of movies. But the core idea of the robot that transforms, that's the enduring part.
And
What's
they never, yeah, that's like the least important part of any Transformers story, is them actually hiding as whatever they're supposed to be hiding as. They immediately transform into a giant robot and proceed.
Yeah, robots in yeah, they should just call it robots are these guys instead of robots in
Yeah.
disguise. Transformers, robots are these guys. That would work, right?
So, you know, there's going to be another He-Man movie in probably another.
I heard about
even another
that.
couple. I didn't know. I was just guessing because I was thinking like, what big '80s franchise haven't we heard from in a while? Ninja Turtles hasn't had a new movie in a while, so I'm sure they're going to reboot soon.
Well, are they going to do another one of those like Michael Bay produced ones? Like the ones
I
that
feel like they're going to do a gritty reboot, Dan. It's going to be darker and more like Samurai Ronin Ninja Turtles, because they have a graphic novel series going on right now. where I
Well,
think,
Last Ronin apparently is amazing. Yeah.
yeah, everybody's talking about that. So I bet you it's going to be another couple years. They will announce some kind of gritty Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah,
You
so
heard
it's
it here first, folks.
well, and the Masters of the Universe movie is going to be a Netflix live action movie, slated for release. Well, slated for release next year.
Wait, who is playing He-Man?
I don't think they've cast it yet.
Who would you cast?
As a modern day
Henry
He-Man?
Cavill.
No. Oh well, yeah, maybe because of the Witcher. Are you talking about?
Yeah.
I was not a big Henry Cavill fan until I watched The Witcher.
He has the chip for it. I like everything about The Witcher except Henry Cavill.
Okay.
Really?
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
I find him to be a I don't know. He's just like a standing stone in the middle of a field full of pretty flowers. You know, like you notice him, but he's not the most interesting thing in the field.
I love the song.
Chris Pratt as He-Man. I'd watch that. That'd be fun.
No.
The thing is, back when they made that Dolph Lundgren version in the 80s, that archetype of the hero was very much prominent. You had your Stallone,
The
Sylvester
action
Stallone
hero.
or Schwarzenegger or Dolph Lundgren, big muscly guy, and that's not really like, it would be what, The Rock maybe now would be He-Man. The closest we would get to a He-Man type person is The Rock.
Well, and even this idea that we see, and it's great because we're talking about what endures, right? We're trying to match fames with the character.
Yeah.
Which that is a modern convention of media, right? That there are stars big enough that if you found the right one, it would boost the other thing, which is already a star, the He-Man property, right? And you want
like
to combine
stories that they don't think are strong enough to stand by themselves. They need to attach a big name to it. We were, when I think we launched casting in Tonkin, Toronto, we talked to somebody who was deep into animated feature films. He was talking to us about, I forget which movie in particular, but when they first animated it, they had like B-list, like just voice actors that they hired. And he said like the movie was great, but it was a new property. So the only way the studio would greenlight it is if they brought in like some huge actors' like some huge names to voice the characters instead of these unknowns.
Yeah,
even though
they had to recast it. Yeah,
even though he liked the version with the unknowns better, it didn't have those big names attached to it, so it wasn't going to do well enough on just the story alone.
Sounds like a Shark Tale. Will Smith and Jack Black. I was joking.
That was a forgettable movie.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure that was.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So if we try to wrap up our conversation's top points into like an actionable strategy.
This is the teacher in you doing this. Every episode you have to try and wrap it up and have some kind of lesson come out of this.
There's got to be a lesson. Otherwise, what's the point of this? Why is anyone listening if we're not going to try and at least coalesce into a complete idea? Dear listener, I'm thinking of you in a way that these other two gentlemen are not. If you have something that you've made, right? And there is a piece of it that you can lend some greater star quality to. I mean, let's face it. My best-selling book ever is because there was a famous band attached to it, not because my name was attached to it. Right? If you can find some component that people will recognize that's greater than the piece you're bringing, that might propel you along. I've actually been having some talks related to the role-playing game that I've been designing, and it's sort of into its beta test now, whether or not I should license some more well-known property at its first release so that people will, I
was actually just going to ask that, like if your next project could be tied to a household name, what would it be?
It, right? What would it be?
Yeah.
What would you rebrand with your own thing? And like something like a video game or a film, because they're a cross media, it makes sense. Like taking a role-playing game mechanic and then licensing a well-known media property for it, makes some good sense.
This kind of ties in. What was Die Hard 3 supposed to be? It wasn't written as a Die Hard movie. It was written as something else.
Yeah, apocryphally, it was a Lethal Weapon script.
Oh, and then they repurposed it for John McClane.
Yeah,
cool. That was a good movie.
Yeah, it was supposed to. I think my favorite Die Hard movie.
Right. Yeah, and it was just supposed to be like one of their old villains that comes back with a bunch of, puzzles and riddles for them, and so they just rewrote the beginning and the end so that the way in for the characters and the way out for them made more sense as a Die Hard movie.
How often do you think that happens where there's a great script, but it doesn't have a recognizable brand attached to it? So they just retool it into the next superhero movie.
Probably more often than we think.
I imagine.
Yeah, more often than we want to admit even. Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans is the one that leaps to mind right now. Is that the producer had the rights to Bad Lieutenant, and they were wanting to make this police drama set in New Orleans after the flood, and they just said, well, we'll put it together because at least people have heard of Bad Lieutenant, even though they had nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole long list of movies and books that fall into that category of wasn't written to be this, but it had a better chance with this attached.
Well, didn't we do the same thing with our own spinoff? This brings us back around, Dan. I hate to point it out, but we're circling back around to a point we made earlier with Claire Marshall, Gear and Sea. We had a property, but we didn't have a way to reach the people who could read at that level in the time that we wanted to have it out. So we reached out to someone else who could do the job. So
that was us trying to, stoke the fires of that longevity of the property, right?
Yeah.
It's going to last longer if we have more creative people working on it than just us.
So really everything we've criticized, we're guilty of also.
I don't think we've been criticizing, we're just talking.
Just talking.
Just talking.
I did make an unkind observation of Henry Cavill. So Henry, I know you're not listening, but your fans are listening. He's good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
You see him as Sherlock Holmes.
He was a better Sherlock Holmes than he is a Gerald of Rivia or whatever.
All right, we got to wrap this up, guys.
Oh,
we're going
well. Dan says, "Stop talking." This has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. This is Gregory Kamichuk encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.